Grace's first day at the new job felt like walking into another world. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place she used to pass on the road and wonder, what kind of people work inside here? The air inside was cold from the AC. The floor shone like water, and everywhere she turned, people moved fast, talking confidently. Holding tablets and laptops, Grace held her small handbag tightly and followed the HR lady down the hallway. Her simple ankle-length gown brushed her legs as she walked. Her black flats were already a little worn at the edges, but she had polished them that morning until they shone. She felt very aware of them now, passing women whose heels clicked sharply on the tiles. Her desk was at the far end of an open-plan office, near the window. From there she could see the city traffic crawling below. They gave her a login, some forms, and a long list of things to type and file. She nodded, said, "Yes, Ma," quietly, and got to work. By lunchtime, her shoulders ached, but she didn't complain. She brought out her small food flask, jollof rice. Her mother had managed to cook, even with her weak body. As she ate, she remembered hospital bills, rent, and the quiet fear that never left her. She opened her phone and started a video call. David's face appeared smiling. "How's my big office worker?" Grace smiled back, her voice soft. "It's fine. I'm just learning. How's your business?" "We thank God. I'm managing the shop," he said lightly. That was all she knew. Her husband owned a business. Right now, all that mattered to her was that this job had to work. For her mother. For their summer future. It didn't take long for people to notice Grace. The next day, she came in wearing another simple gown, this one light blue, with the same polished flats. She set her old laptop on the table, the one David had repaired twice already. The screen was a bit dim, and the keyboard had a shiny patch where her fingers always rested. Across the office, Tanya watched her. Tanya was the kind of woman you noticed immediately. Sharp wig, loud perfume, red heels, and a laugh that carried across the whole floor. Two other ladies sat with her, scrolling on their phones and whispering. "See her shoe," one of them murmured. Tanya smirked. "New girl came from village straight to office. Even her laptop looks tired." They burst out laughing. Later that afternoon, when Grace opened her food flask at her desk, the smell of homemade beans and plantain floated into the air. Tanya wrinkled her nose. "Ah, village at dawn bring canteen to office," she said loudly. The others giggled. "Grace, you no see the cafeteria downstairs, or is this beans your family inheritance?" They laughed harder. Someone added, "That laptop too, village network. If light goes off now, it will die." Grace forced a weak smile. "It's fine. I manage like that." Inside, her chest felt tight. She kept her eyes on her screen, blinking fast so tears wouldn't fall. Her fingers shook slightly as she typed. A few minutes later, as she carried her empty flask towards the small back corridor, the older cleaner, Mama Bissy, stopped her. "My daughter," she said gently, "don't mind them. Some people only feel big when they make others small." Grace swallowed. "I'm trying. It just hurts." Mama Bissy nodded slowly. "Just do your work well. God sees everything people think is a joke." The tension really began with an Excel sheet. One Friday morning, the office felt extra serious. People were moving faster, printers were spitting out papers nonstop, and phones kept ringing. A major client report was due by 4 p.m., and everyone knew the company depended on that account. Tanya sat at her desk, nails clicking quickly on her keyboard, eyes half on the screen and half on her phone. She was updating sales figures, talking and laughing with her friends while typing. "I beg, send me that picture on WhatsApp," she told one of them, barely looking at the numbers. By afternoon, her face suddenly changed. She zoomed in on one column, then another. Something wasn't adding up. She had dragged one formula too far and messed up a full section. The total at the bottom looked beautiful, but it was wrong. She glanced around nervously, then her eyes landed on Grace. "Grace," she called sweetly. "Come." Grace walked over, wiping her hands on her skirt, a little anxious. "Yes, Ma?" Tanya turned the screen toward her. "See these figures? Just adjust them small so the totals will balance with what we sent last quarter. The MD likes neat numbers. Grace frowned slightly. But these are real sales, right? If we change them, it won't match the records. Tanya's smile thinned. It's just small adjustment. Nobody will die. Grace shook her head gently. I'm sorry. I don't want a problem. If audit checks and see it, they can sack me. Please, Ma. For a long second, Tanya stared at her, eyes cold. Okay, she said quietly. No problem. You can go. Grace walked back to her desk, relieved but uneasy. She didn't see the way Tanya's jaw tightened, or the hard look she shared with her friends. From that moment, in Tanya's mind, Grace was no longer just Villageit. She was a problem, and problems had to be dealt with. From then on, the office changed for Grace, but not in a good way. It started small. Tanya would drop a pile of printing on her desk at 4:45 p.m. and say, Abeg, staple and arrange these before you go. Things any intern could do, but always dumped on Grace, always at the last minute. Sometimes important emails about deadlines or meeting times would go out, but somehow Grace's name would be missing from the list. She would be at her desk, focused on her work, while the others gathered in the small meeting room. When she finally noticed and walked in late, Tanya would raise an eyebrow. Nice of you to join us, Grace. You're always behind, aren't you? The others would snicker. In the team WhatsApp group, plans for lunch or extra tasks would appear, but a new group soon popped up. Core team only. Grace wasn't added. She only heard about things when it was already too late. Slowly, rumors began to move around like smoke. Grace is a bit slow, Shaw. She doesn't talk to anybody. Maybe she thinks she's better than us. She's not a team player, always on her own. Grace heard little pieces as she passed by, or when someone slipped and said too much in front of her. Each word felt like a small stone hitting her chest. That night, at home, she finally broke. She sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, and called David. When his face appeared on the screen, the tears came. How was work? He asked, worried. It was fine, she lied first, then shook her head. I'm just tired. People are not very friendly. He leaned closer. Talk to me. She wiped her face. It's nothing serious. I'll be okay. I don't want to worry you. But after the call ended, she sat in the dark for a long time, hugging her pillow, wondering how long she could really endure. The day everything broke started out like any other. By 10 a.m., the office was already buzzing. The MD wanted a big presentation for an important client at 3 p.m., and most of the updated figures were with Grace. She had spent days cleaning the data, updating the slides, and putting everything in order on her old laptop. If anything went wrong, they would all feel it. While others went downstairs for lunch, Grace stayed back. Her stomach rumbled, but she pushed her food flask aside and kept typing. She checked each line twice, saving again and again, whispering, Please, God, let everything go well today. Her laptop sat open on her desk, a steaming paper cup of coffee beside it, just to keep her awake. She didn't notice Tanya and her friends approaching until their perfume filled the air. Villageit, you no day rest? One of them joked. Grace gave a small, tired smile. I just want to finish these updates before the meeting. They laughed among themselves. Then, in one smooth move, the girl closest to her stumbled. Ah! She shouted, bumping Grace's desk. The coffee cup tipped over in slow motion, dark liquid spilling straight across the keyboard. It soaked the keys, ran into the gaps, and dripped off the edge. No, Grace whispered, grabbing tissues, pressing buttons. The screen flickered, buzzed, then went black. Silence spread through the room. Then whispers. Tanya gasped loudly. Grace! How can you be so careless? All the files are on that system. The manager rushed over. What happened here? Before Grace could speak, Tanya jumped in. Sir, we told her to back everything up on the shared drive. She refused. Now look. Eyes turned to Grace, accusing, disappointed. Her mouth opened and closed. I saved on my laptop. I was going to... That report is our lifeline, the manager snapped. If we lose this client because of you, you'll be suspended. Do you hear me? Laughter, murmurs, and pity mixed behind her. Grace stood in the middle of it all, hands shaking, coffee dripping from her dead laptop, feeling like the ground had opened under her feet. Grace didn't even switch on the light when she got home. She dropped her bag on the chair and sat on the floor beside the bed, back against the wall, staring at nothing. The silence in the room felt louder than the office whispers. Her phone rang. David. She almost didn't pick, but finally slid her finger across the screen. "Hey, Madam Office," he said softly. "How was today?" That question broke her. She started crying, not the quiet tears she could hide in the office, but deep shaking sobs. David went silent on the other end. Grace. What happened? She told him everything. The name-calling, the petty tasks, the rumors, the coffee, how they blamed her, how the manager threatened suspension. Every word poured out of her like water from a broken pipe. When she finished, there was a long pause. "Grace," he said slowly, voice low and controlled. "Did you say this happened on the 3rd floor? By the east window? Near the big pillar?" She sniffed. "Yes, that side." "Okay," he said. "Listen to me. Don't resign. Don't sign anything. Just go to work tomorrow like normal. Can you do that for me?" She hesitated. "David, I don't think I can stay there." "Trust me," he said quietly. "Please." She wiped her face. "Fine. I'll try." After the call ended, David's whole mood changed. The calm in his voice stayed, but his eyes hardened. He picked up another phone and dialed a different number. "Good evening," he said. "It's David. Yes, the majority shareholder. I need HR and legal on a call now. And tell a T to pull all CCTV footage from the 3rd floor open office today between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. The husband they mocked without knowing had just stepped into the story. The next day, while Grace sat quietly at her corner desk trying not to shake, a very different conversation was happening upstairs. In a glass-walled boardroom on the top floor, David sat opposite the MD, Mr. Hassan, and the HR director, Miss Kemi. The city spread out behind them through the huge windows, but no one was admiring the view. David spoke calmly, but every word was sharp. "This is not just about my wife," he said. "It's about the kind of company my name is on. If they can do this to her, they're doing it to others." He slid a tablet across the table. On the screen, the CCTV footage played. Tonya's clique walking past Grace's desk, the fake stumble, the coffee spilling, the laughter that followed while Grace panicked over her dying laptop. Mr. Hassan sighed heavily. "This is bad." "It gets worse," David said. He tapped again. Screenshots of chats and emails appeared. Tonya calling Grace Village IT, joking about today's prank, blaming her in a message to the manager even before the report failed. Ulster HR had done some digging overnight. A file sat open in front of Kemi, filled with small complaints and concerns from junior staff. Most had been closed with notes like "handled verbally" or "no further action." People were scared, Kemi admitted quietly. They didn't want to lose their jobs. David nodded once. "Then we'll show them they were heard." They agreed on the plan. No warning, no polite memo. An unannounced visit to that floor. A formal internal investigation. Everyone involved would be questioned, starting today. Downstairs, the bullies laughed as usual, not knowing the storm that was already climbing the stairs toward them. By 9 a.m., the whole office was restless. An unusual email had gone out early. All staff on 3rd floor should assemble in the main boardroom by 10 a.m. A new investor is visiting. No extra details, no agenda. Just that. People whispered as they walked in groups toward the boardroom. Some adjusted their wigs, some straightened their ties. Tonya and her friends were excited. "Maybe this investor will open a Dubai branch," one of them said, laughing. "I'm ready to relocate." Grace walked behind them, heart heavy. In her mind, the only reason for a sudden meeting was trouble. Maybe the client had pulled out. Maybe they had blamed her fully. Maybe today would be the day they told her to pack her things. She slipped into a seat near the back, close to the wall, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her eyes stayed on the table, not trusting herself to look around. The room slowly filled up. The air was cold from the AC, smelling of perfume and nervous sweat. Then the side door opened. Mr. Hassan, the MD, walked in first. Beside him was a man in a dark, perfectly cut suit, white shirt, simple watch. His presence filled the room. Grace's head snapped up. David. But this was not the David who joked with her on video calls in a simple t-shirt. This was a different side of him. Calm, sharp, controlled. He took his place at the front beside the MD. Mr. Hassan cleared his throat. Good morning, everyone. I want you to meet Mr. David, our majority owner and main investor. The room exploded in whispers. Owner? Investor? Grace's heart pounded so loudly she almost didn't hear David's next words. Before we continue, he said quietly, please play the CCTV from yesterday's little coffee incident on the screen. The screen came to life and the room went silent. There was Grace at her desk, head bent over her laptop, shoulders tense. The angle from the ceiling camera captured everything. Tonya's clique walked past laughing. They paused by her table. Everyone watched as one of the girls shifted her cup, stepped back dramatically, and then tripped. The coffee flew, splashing straight across the keyboard. On the screen, you could see their faces clearly as they laughed while Grace panicked, grabbing tissues. You could also see Tonya covering her mouth, pretending to be shocked, then smirking when Grace wasn't looking. In the boardroom, someone gasped. A few people looked down at their laps, guilt burning their faces. They had seen things, heard things, but they'd kept quiet. When the video ended, the silence was heavy. David spoke, his voice calm but firm. The woman in that video is my wife. It was like all the air left the room at once. Chairs creaked. Someone whispered Jesus. Tonya's face drained of color. Sir, it was not like that, she started, already tearing up. It was just a joke. We didn't mean... HR placed a neat stack of papers on the table. These are your emails, Tonya, and your WhatsApp chats. Planning pranks. Calling her names. Blaming her before anything went wrong. Tonya's friend tried to stand. We were only playing. This kind of play cost people their dignity, David cut in. By the time the meeting ended, some letters had been handed out on the spot. Termination for gross misconduct. Others were given suspension notices pending a full process. David looked around the room. From today, we have clear anti-bullying policies, anonymous reporting, mandatory training. This company will not be a place where wickedness hides as jokes. Grace could feel every eye on her when HR called her name. They were back in the boardroom later that week, this time for staff updates. Her heart still beat fast each time she walked into that room, remembering the day of the video. She sat near the middle now, not hiding at the back. Miss Kemi, the HR director, stood at the front with a folder in her hand. First, she said, looking directly at Grace, we need to correct an injustice. She lifted a document. The query and warning placed on Grace's file about the lost report have been removed. Officially. Completely. The records now show what truly happened. That she did her work well and others sabotaged it. A small, surprise clap started somewhere and spread. Grace's throat tightened. She blinked hard, staring at the table so she wouldn't cry in front of everyone. And secondly, Kemi continued, based on her conduct, honesty, and the owner's recommendation, Grace is being promoted to a new role in staff relations and internal controls. She will help us build a healthier workplace. Later, in a smaller meeting, Grace spoke quietly but firmly. I will be fair, she told them, but I won't keep quiet again in a week. If I see people being mistreated, silence helped them before. It won't help them now. In the weeks that followed, the office changed. People lowered their voices when gossip tried to start. Cleaners got proper greetings, not just orders. Security guards received good morning and thank you. New staff found chairs pulled out for them, not pushed away. Some of her former bullies came, one by one, to apologize. Grace listened. She forgave, but she did not pretend the past was a dream. One evening, at home on the balcony, she leaned against David's shoulder, watching the city lights. "I used to think being quiet made me weak," she said. David smiled slightly. "Now they know who you are. More importantly, you know who you are." The night breeze moved softly around them, carrying a simple lesson: respect everyone. You never know whose story you're stepping on.